The scream cut through the quiet afternoon air like a knife, stopping every conversation within 100 yards of Skywalker Ranch. Harrison Ford, who'd been discussing camera angles with a documentary crew just moments before, didn't hesitate for even a second. He dropped his coffee cup and ran toward the sound, his 61-year-old legs carrying him faster than they had in years. What he found in that parking lot would test everything he thought he knew about being a hero. October 12, 2003, was supposed to be a routine day at George Lucas's legendary ranch. Harrison was there filming segments for a documentary about vintage aircraft, discussing his passion for aviation in the peaceful Northern California setting where Star Wars had been born. The ranch was particularly beautiful that day, with golden light filtering through the redwood trees and a sense of peace that made the rest of the world feel very far away. That peace shattered with a sound no parent ever wants to hear, a woman screaming in absolute terror. "Help! Somebody help me, please!" The voice carried across the parking area with the kind of raw panic that bypasses all rational thought and goes straight to the most primitive part of your brain, the part that says run toward danger, not away from it. Harrison's reaction was immediate and instinctive. Later, people would ask him what he was thinking in that moment, but the truth was, he wasn't thinking at all. He was moving, his body responding to decades of playing heroes by becoming one. He reached the parking lot in less than 30 seconds, his heart pounding not from exertion, but from the adrenaline that comes with knowing something is terribly wrong. What he found there was every parent's nightmare made real. A young woman, maybe early 20s, was kneeling beside a red Honda Civic, cradling the head of a teenage boy who couldn't have been more than 16. The boy's face was gray, his lips tinged with blue, and his breathing was shallow and labored. His eyes were rolled back, showing mostly whites, and his body was convulsing slightly. "What happened?" Harrison asked, dropping to his knees beside them without introduction or explanation. The young woman Jessica, though Harrison wouldn't learn her name until later, looked up at him with tear-streaked cheeks and desperate eyes. "It's my brother Tommy. He has type 1 diabetes and I think his blood sugar crashed. He was fine in the car, and then he just collapsed when we got out. I don't know what to do." Harrison had encountered diabetic emergencies before. His stunt coordinator on Temple of Doom had been diabetic, and Harrison had made it his business to understand the condition after a scare during filming. He knew they were dealing with minutes, maybe less. "This is hypoglycemia, low blood sugar," Harrison said, his voice calm but urgent. "We need to get sugar into him fast, but he's unconscious, so we can't give him anything by mouth. Do you have a glucagon kit?" Jessica stared at him blankly. "A what?" Harrison's heart sank. Many diabetic families didn't carry emergency glucagon, either because they didn't know about it or couldn't afford it. Tommy's condition was deteriorating rapidly. His breathing was becoming more irregular, and his skin was taking on a grayish pallor that Harrison recognized as pre-shock. "Call 911, he told Jessica, "now." While Jessica fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, Harrison made a decision that would haunt and define him for years to come. He'd learned CPR for various movie roles, but he'd never had to use it in a real crisis. More importantly, he'd learned something else during his years of playing action heroes. Sometimes being a hero isn't about having all the answers. Sometimes it's about refusing to walk away when someone needs you. "The ambulance is coming," Jessica said, ending her 911 call. They said 20 minutes. 20 minutes might as well have been 20 hours. Tommy's breathing was getting shallower, and his pulse was becoming thready and weak. Harrison had seen enough medical emergencies on movie sets to know that they were losing him. That's when Harrison Ford made a decision that revealed who he really was when the cameras stopped rolling. "We're not waiting," he said, standing up and looking around the parking lot. "Is there anyone here with a helicopter?" It wasn't as crazy a question as it sounded. This was Skywalker Ranch, after all, and the documentary crew had arrived via helicopter that morning. More importantly, Harrison had his own pilot's license and had been flying helicopters for over a decade. "There's the news chopper that brought the camera crew," one of the documentary producers said. "But the pilot went into town for lunch. I need the keys to that helicopter," he said to the producer. "What? Harrison, you can't. I've been flying helicopters for 10 years. I'm instrument rated, and I know every hospital between here and San Francisco. This kid is dying, and I'm not going to stand here and watch it happen." The producer hesitated. Insurance concerns, liability issues, union regulations, all the things that make Hollywood lawyers wake up in cold sweats flashed across his face. Harrison saw the hesitation and felt something inside him snap. "Give me the goddamn keys," he said in a voice that brooked no argument. "Or explain to this girl why her brother died because you were worried about paperwork." The keys were in Harrison's hand 30 seconds later. What followed was a masterclass in crisis management that no acting coach could have taught and no script could have captured. Harrison gently but firmly took charge of the situation, organizing the available people into a coordinated rescue effort. "I need 2 strong people to help me move Tommy into the helicopter," he directed. "Carefully support his head and neck. Jessica, you're coming with us. Someone call Marine General Hospital and tell them we're coming in with a diabetic emergency, ETA 15 minutes. Within 5 minutes they had Tommy secured in the helicopter, Jessica beside him holding his hand and talking to him, despite his unconscious state. Harrison was in the pilot's seat, running through pre-flight checks with the kind of focused intensity that his movie directors would have recognized but never fully understood. This wasn't acting. This was Harrison Ford stripped down to his essential self, a man who could not walk away from someone who needed help. The helicopter lifted off at 3:47 p.m., just 16 minutes after Tommy had collapsed in the parking lot. Harrison had filed no flight plan, had no official clearance, and was technically violating several FAA regulations. He didn't care. The flight to Marin General Hospital normally took 25 minutes. Harrison made it in 14, pushing the helicopter to its limits while maintaining the smooth, stable flight that Tommy's condition required. He stayed on the radio with hospital emergency services the entire time, relaying vital signs that Jessica was monitoring, describing Tommy's condition, ensuring that the medical team would be ready the moment they landed. "This is N74 Charlie, approaching Morell's General," Harrison radioed as the hospital came into view. "I have a 16-year-old male, severe hypoglycemic episode, unconscious for approximately 20 minutes, breathing shallow and irregular. Roger, N74 Charlie. Emergency team is standing by. Are you medical transport?" Harrison paused for just a moment before responding. "Negative. This is Harrison Ford. I'm a pilot, and this kid needed help." The response from air traffic control was stunned silence, followed by "Copy that, Mr. Ford. You're cleared for emergency landing on pad 2. They touched down at Marin General at 4:01 p.m., where a full medical team was waiting. Harrison had radioed ahead with every detail he could provide, and the doctors were ready to act immediately. Tommy was transferred from the helicopter to a gurney in less than 30 seconds, with Harrison and Jessica running alongside as the medical team rushed him into the emergency room. Dr. Sarah Chen, the emergency physician who took over Tommy's care, worked with the kind of focused intensity that Harrison recognized from his own crisis management. IV glucose, oxygen, cardiac monitors, the medical equivalent of a perfectly choreographed action sequence. Harrison stood back, suddenly feeling useless and out of place in this world of medical expertise. At 4:43 p.m., Tommy Martinez opened his eyes. His first word was "Jess," his second was "water," and his third, when he saw Harrison Ford standing at the foot of his hospital bed, was an expletive that made the nurses smile and his sister cry with relief. "You're going to be fine," Dr. Chen told Tommy. "Your blood sugar dropped to dangerously low levels, but we've got it stabilized now. You came very close to a diabetic coma, but whoever got you here so quickly probably saved your life." Tommy looked confused. "Who got me here?" Jessica pointed to Harrison, who was trying to make himself invisible in the corner of the room. "Indiana Jones flew us here in a helicopter." Tommy stared at Harrison for a long moment, then looked at his sister, then back at Harrison. "You're kidding." "I don't kid about helicopters," Harrison said with a slight smile. Dr. Chen pulled Harrison aside. "Mr. Ford, I want you to understand something. When diabetic patients go into severe hypoglycemia like this, every minute counts. The fact that you got him here in 14 minutes instead of waiting for ground transport probably prevented permanent brain damage. You didn't just save his life, you saved his future." Harrison nodded uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," Dr. Chen said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have waited for the ambulance, followed protocol, worried about liability. You broke rules to save a stranger's life. That's not anyone, that's heroism." But the story doesn't end with Tommy's recovery. Remarkable though that was, what happened in the days and weeks following the rescue revealed something even more extraordinary about Harrison Ford's character. Harrison stayed at the hospital for 6 hours, well past the point where his presence was medically necessary. He sat with Jessica in the waiting room while Tommy underwent additional tests, listening to her stories about their family, about Tommy's dreams of becoming a filmmaker. "We didn't have much money growing up," Jessica told him. "But Mom would take us to the movies every Friday night, and your movies, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, they made us believe that good people could win, that heroes were real. Tommy wants to make movies like that someday." Before leaving the hospital, Harrison did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He gave Jessica his personal phone number. "If Tommy needs anything, medical bills, follow-up care, anything, you call me," he told her. And I mean anything. But Harrison's involvement in Tommy's life was just beginning. Over the following weeks, he stayed in regular contact with the Martinez family, checking on Tommy's recovery, ensuring that their insurance was covering all medical expenses, and quietly arranging for additional support when it wasn't. He learned that their father had died in Iraq 3 years earlier, that Jessica was working 2 jobs to support her family while putting herself through community college, that Tommy's diabetes had been diagnosed just 6 months earlier, and they were still learning to manage it. Most significantly, Harrison learned that Tommy's passion for filmmaking had been inspired by a desire to tell stories about families like his own. "I want to make movies about regular people doing extraordinary things," Tommy told Harrison during one of their phone conversations. "Not superheroes or action stars, but people who take care of their families and help their neighbors and don't give up when things get hard." Harrison was quiet for a long moment, struck by the realization that this 16-year-old kid understood something about heroism that Harrison himself was still learning. "That sounds like important work," Harrison finally said. "How can I help?" What followed was a mentorship that would continue for years. Harrison arranged for Tommy to attend a summer film program at USC, covering all expenses. He introduced him to editors, directors, and cinematographers who could teach him the technical aspects of filmmaking. More importantly, he encouraged Tommy to develop his own voice as a storyteller. But the most profound impact of Harrison's intervention wasn't professional, it was personal. Through his relationship with the Martinez family, Harrison discovered something about himself that all his years of movie stardom hadn't taught him: the joy of making a difference in individual lives rather than entertaining masses of anonymous people. "You know what's funny?" Harrison told Steven Spielberg months later. "I've made movies that were seen by hundreds of millions of people, but I'm not sure any of them mattered as much as flying one kid to the hospital." 5 years later, Tommy Martinez graduated from USC Film School with a degree in cinematography and a senior thesis film that won the Student Academy Award. The film, titled 47 Minutes, was a fictionalized account of a medical emergency that brought together people from different worlds and the lasting connections that emerged from shared crisis. Harrison attended Tommy's graduation ceremony, sitting in the audience with Maria Martinez and Jessica, who had by then completed her own degree in nursing and was working at LA County Hospital. After the ceremony, Tommy approached Harrison with a question. "Mr. Ford," he said, "that day at the ranch when you heard my sister screaming, what made you run toward the sound instead of away from it?" Harrison considered the question carefully before answering. "Tommy, I spent 30 years playing heroes in movies. But heroes in movies always know they're going to be okay. The script guarantees it. That day with you, I didn't know if anything would be okay. I just knew that a kid was dying and I might be able to help. That's not heroism, that's just humanity." Today, more than 2 decades after that October afternoon at Skywalker Ranch, Harrison Ford still maintains his friendship with the Martinez family. Tommy is now a successful cinematographer who continues to focus on stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. Jessica became a nurse practitioner specializing in diabetes care, inspired by her experience with Tommy's crisis. Every year on October 12th, Harrison receives a phone call from the Martinez family. It's become an annual tradition, a celebration not of Tommy's rescue, but of the friendship that grew out of that crisis. These conversations have become one of Harrison's favorite parts of the year, a reminder of what matters most in a life that could easily be consumed by the artificial dramas of Hollywood. "You know what I learned from that day?" Harrison told an interviewer recently. "I learned that the distance between playing a hero and being a hero is actually very small. It's just the distance between thinking about helping and actually helping." The story of Harrison Ford's helicopter rescue has become something of a legend in Hollywood, but not the kind of legend that gets told at award shows. It's the kind of legend that gets passed quietly between people who understand that the most important stories are often the ones that never make the headlines. The cameras never captured Harrison Ford's rescue, but the impact of those 47 minutes continues to ripple outward. In a career filled with memorable performances and iconic characters, it remains the role Harrison Ford is most proud of. Not Indiana Jones or Han Solo, but himself on an October afternoon when a kid needed help and he decided not to walk away.